we've got Faye here today, who is the mother of Maddison. Maddison is a Arsenal under 21's goalkeeper. Started her football through sort of a grassroots journey, and I think Faye will let you know that there's been some ups and downs along the way. So she's going to share her story and about the sacrifices that she's made as a mum, single mum with Maddison to get her to where she is today, and what the future looks like for both of them. So thank you for joining us, Faye. So really, if you can just give us a little bit of information about Maddison. When did she start playing football?
Yeah, Maddison started when she was 6, and that just feels a lifetime ago now. She was a trampolinist, and she was adamant that she wanted to be a footballer. I wasn't so keen, because that meant I was going to be an outdoor sports mum rather than inside with a cup of tea mum. So she started at a local grassroots club, Longfleet, in their under-7s. So she's been playing football for 11, 12 years
Yes,
now.
Maddison's 18, isn't she? Yeah. And are you a football fan?
I am now.
Yeah, I know. I think that's what most football mums end up kind of being reluctantly dragged into it. But...
Yeah, I mean, growing up, my family always massive football fans. They're actually a whole bunch of Arsenal fans, which helps. But I would always watch the big games, the big tournaments with my dad anyway. It wasn't that I was against her playing football. It just wasn't what girls did 12 years ago.
Yeah, so yeah, we show actually how times have changed so much now, haven't they? That it's so normal for girls to play, and girls to play with boys as well. So Maddison started in a boys team.
Yeah,
okay.
So she started outfield. So she was a striker, and then all of a sudden she started showing an interest in being a goalkeeper, and I was like, no, I don't want to be a goalkeeper, it's not a horrible position. And she just made her own mind up, spoke to some coaches in some other sessions she was doing, and then she made the transition. My partner at the time, Ben, came into my life. He was a goalkeeper, so he was just like, if she wants to be a goalkeeper, you're not going to get the coaching at grassroots football in the team. She needs to go somewhere else, and that's really how her journey started.
So was it through Ben that ignited her desire to go into goal in the first place?
Yeah. So I remember specifically she started going in goal, and it was Christmas time. Ben introduced me to one of his good friends, Robbie Yates, who's quite well known in the area for goalkeeping. We had a chat over a pub quiz, and he's like, bring her along. And then she started going to the goalkeeping group between the sticks once or twice a week, and within 5 months she was signed to a centre of excellence. So it just went very quickly, but it meant that she had to leave behind her clubs, and she had to, that's probably one of the first sacrifices she had to make, was to leave playing with her friends to then going to a more of an elite level.
Yeah, so that was probably the earliest challenge for her, really. I mean, clearly there was a natural talent and ability there for her to go so quickly from deciding going to go and stand between the sticks and have balls hit at me to go into centre of excellence in such a short space of time. So natural talent there, but having to then walk away from grassroots. And how long had she been at grassroots at that stage?
I think she'd done 2 seasons. So one season she did solely with the boys. Second season, the club created a girls team.
Okay.
So she didn't necessarily train much with the girls team, because doing 2 lots of training and 2 matches Saturday and Sundays. But when I look back at the girls team's journey, they played their very first tournament in a May, and the first day I think they conceded 22 goals. They had to kick off after a goal was scored. The next day the coach just said to them, you need to protect Maddison, and the girls just clicked, and the next day they only conceded like single number in goals. And then if you look fast forward to the end of that season, they won a plate final at a tournament penalty shootout in Weymouth. So the journey of those girls through that season was ridiculous. It was such a good thing to see.
And they must have been one of the very early stages of an all girls team, because I remember seeing Maddison at a tournament, because I've got some the same age, and it was quite unusual. Like, oh, there's a girl in the team.
Yeah,
and that was 10 years ago. That was the kind of.
But you'd also have the comments, oh, don't worry, you're scoring against a girl that's a goalkeeper. You've got nothing to worry about. And it was all those little comments that she would face, or we would hear as parents, to be like, don't just assume because she's a girl that she can't play football.
Did those comments make her more determined and stronger as a player, or did they get to her sometimes?
They did get to her sometimes, because in her own team, there would be times where they wouldn't trust what she was shouting as a goalkeeper. When she was on pitch, she wouldn't get the ball crossed to her at points. And I sat her down and I said, your coach is looking at what you're doing, not what the other player is doing. If you're in the right position and you're ready to make that shot, but it doesn't come to you, that's okay. You've read the game, you know where to go. Same as a goalie. If your defenders are not listening to you, or parents are making snide comments on the side, it's down to you how you deal with that. And I don't think it ever really got her down, but it certainly was something that she was aware of as a girl playing in that pretty much boy environment.
And how is that as a mum to have that? Because we've all been on the sidelines and you hear people say things, even parents on your own team, where they made a mistake, or something's happened, or a striker's missed a one-on-one. And as a parent, sometimes you're staunchly protective of your children. Yeah. So to hear other people saying things,
your blood boils. Absolutely, but I'm not even going to lie.
Yeah,
like there are moments where you just want to react and you can't.
Yeah,
because I am not one of I actually find the sidelines quite uncomfortable. At Arsenal, it's very different. It's all very supportive. I mean, you do have some squads coming there quite loud, and you're just like, whoa. But at grassroots, I don't see the need for screaming at your child and all the rest of it. And the comments, people talk about other players. Of course they do, but I would never expect it to be within the earshot of somebody. But on the flip side of that, Maddison's had some games where, because I was secretary of her grassroots club, they would come over not knowing that she was my daughter, and they were like, can I just say your goalkeeper is phenomenal, any chance you want to sign for us next season? So you have the other side of it where they don't expect a girl to be able to play that well. But yeah, I certainly have avoided any confrontation on the sidelines.
Yeah.
It's a bit different now as she verges into senior football, because that is everywhere you go. It's going to be more people criticising social media. That's a whole different ball game we're going into. But yeah, you just want to protect your child. So yeah, I'm not going to lie. There were probably moments where I was this close, but yeah. I'm not that person.
It's a mother's instinct, isn't it? You hear something about your child and it's like, the heckles go up. It's like that instant. Yeah. Was that my child? They just said something about it. Yeah, it's definitely. And I do think at grassroots, it just brings out the worst in people sometimes.
It does, and it's unnecessary. It really is unnecessary. Yeah. They just want to play.
Yeah, grassroots parents, sadly, we've all been them, but they are not the great. So, at what age were things really? Did you think this is getting serious? This is Maddison's excelling. We're hearing great things about her. She's at a centre of excellence. When did you think? This could be something here.
I think at you don't expect the next thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. And I guess when she went to a centre of excellence, we were like, this is amazing. We were driving all over to play Chelsea, Arsenal, Essex, Birmingham. And then that was just like phenomenal. Then Southampton FC took over that setup, and then she was formally linked to a Premiership football club. And then you're just like, well, this is getting serious, because they don't have coach travel and all the rest of it. But for me, when you realise, the moment I think I realised she could make a career out of this was the whole Arsenal journey. There was a conversation from one of her clubs that said she needs to be in the WSL Academy setup. And I remember going, really? I hadn't even considered that was possible for her. And they said, just go away, write an email, write a letter to all the clubs. Here's a list. Here's the academic setup, all the rest of it. So I literally went home with Maddison, and it was Gemma at Dorset FA. She was absolutely brilliant. And I did this massive spreadsheet. Club, what courses do they offer at college? Where would the living arrangements be? Did they have everything in place? And I was just checking it all off, like, no, yes. And then you get down to the point of you've got to remove the badge from these conversations. Just because we're Arsenal fans doesn't mean to say Arsenal is going to be the best club for her. And then you write an email, she's had this experience, she's this tall, she's been on the England pathway previously. And you just literally send it all off and let it do its work. And then you just get, no, we're not recruiting, or we are interested, can she come to this trial? And you're just like, wow, what is happening here? So we dwindled it down. She did college interviews for, I think, about 4 WSL clubs. Trialed, sent footage because it was impossible to travel everywhere to do everything.
Yeah. Whilst probably trying to do GCSEs at the same time.
GCSEs, working.
Yeah.
So in the end, she physically trialled at Leicester and Arsenal, and we got the offer from Arsenal. We were just like, wow, this is where it gets serious. Like, you've been in environments up until now, but this is another level.
Yeah. And that's and that for you, that was the moment you think, right, this could now be a career. This is where it's kind of happening.
Because up until that point, I knew she loved to play, I knew she had talent, but it was still very much with her friends. And at the age groups, obviously at 14s, under 14s, they're taught you the skill, you still got that element of enjoying it. We're not really worried about the results. Then when you get to the next age limit, she actually skipped under 16s due to being released, but then it's the competitiveness. We need to win this game. And at that point, you're just like, okay, you're drilling that into them. But when she got the offers, I was just like, you could actually be paid to play one day. And that's pretty exciting. Yeah. Like, do what you love for as long as you can.
Yeah. I think I would say, just rewinding when you were with the sort of talent centres, and you said, we had a conversation once, and you said how many, I think you had a new car, and you said how many miles or how many, like the tyres that you were using. Yeah. Can you remember that year that you said the mileage that you were doing in your probably your worst year?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. So actually, when I spoke to you, it probably wasn't her worst year. So the worst year for mileage was her first year at Arsenal, because she wasn't driving.
Yeah.
And she struggled to settle in initially. So I was going up every Saturday afternoon, bringing her home, taking her back Sunday night. So straight away, that is 240 miles a weekend, let alone going up on a Wednesday to watch the game. So I would say in 2.5 years, I've probably done about 80,000 miles.
Okay. Wow. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, I mean, we're all supportive of our children, but I think you kind of you take the crown as being one of the most supportive parents that I know. And obviously, so you want to go to every match. Are they Wednesdays and Saturdays?
No, so generally in the it's now the PGA Academy, every Wednesday. So I am so fortunate with my job that I could use a holiday on a Wednesday. If it was a really far away game, take a day. If it was a home game, because it's Hemel Hempstead, I could finish at 12, be there for kickoff. Like, my boss was brilliant. I'd work on my phone on the go as well if ever needed. I've taken calls when I've been at games. So it kind of works both ways. Since she's been playing, I have missed one game, and that's because I was at a wedding in Scotland when she was at Grassroots. Other games, she's been to Zurich last year and this year before, I was able to watch them streamed.
Yeah.
So even though I wasn't physically there, I was still able to watch her play, and I plan to continue doing that as long as I can.
Well, I mean, technology's been exceptional, really, in the sort of the growth of kind of online and streaming and Zoom and things. So it's been able to give people connection when they're not physically connected.
And my dad's never seen her play. He's seen her play actually once. He's disabled, and she played last year at Craven Cottage against Fulham, and that whole game was streamed, so I was able to go back and watch it with my dad. And it was a real special moment, because when they were like, Maddison Stanbury saves, she got the save, and he would just literally have this moment. He goes, I've always wondered what it'd be like to hear a name on TV. And it was that's what I'm grateful for, because he's never going to be able to travel to see her play. But for those moments, they're just so precious.
Was there ever a time that you thought, I can't do this, I can't get to this, I can't juggle this?
I would say no. But there are points where it's just really overwhelming. So I'm a project manager day in, day out. So that means that as soon as I get a fixtures list, I'm looking at hotels. Do I need hotels when I need time off work? Do I need to put the dogs in doggy daycare and overnight? It's all these little elements before I can even say, yes, Maddison can be there. And when there's a change in that schedule last minute, it can send me a little bit nuts, because I'm just like, I had all this sorted. It's overwhelming from a time perspective, emotionally, being the person that she needs me to be in that moment. Sometimes it's not a mum, sometimes it's a friend. And then just the financial side, I've never not done anything because it's felt too much. I've just really tried my hardest to do everything that I can for her, and I'll just continue to do that as long as I can.
So can we talk about the finances a little bit? So she got offered the scholarship, was it, at Arsenal?
It's a 2-year contract.
A 2-year contract. So at this stage, are they paying you anything? Are they what's being covered, what's not?
Yeah, so because she has to stay in education until she's 18, so she does a full-time college course alongside it. So the college that she at is very much sports, elite athletes based. You've got cyclists, karate, basketball, all sorts. So all of their schedules are kind of in line to allow all the athletes to have their games on Wednesday and coaching in the morning, college in the morning, coaching in the evenings. So I knew that I would have to pay for her accommodation costs up in St Albans, which is fine. And then obviously her expenses on top. They don't feed them every day of the week because a lot of them do go home at weekends.
Okay.
Maddison trains on a Saturday morning, so that was never really overly feasible. They obviously get so much kit and equipment. It's unreal what they are given. All of their expenses for football is covered. So the transport, meals, away games, home games, those kind of thing, the standard stuff. They did a pre-season tour, end of season tour. That's obviously all included as well. Things that aren't included, as I said, is the rent. It's up to me if I go to games or not. And things like gloves.
Oh, okay.
Goalkeeper gloves are not cut. They get boots, but Maddison prefers a different brand of boot, so we do end up buying her boots. But gloves are not covered, and
that's interesting, isn't it? That they're kind of catering for the majority of the players in terms of what they need.
Yeah.
The goalkeepers.
I think though, when it comes to gloves and boots, they are quite specific. You don't want to have a particular brand forced upon you if you don't like it, because it is quite individual. Maddison does have a couple of brands that she likes, but I end up having to buy them in bulk when I can afford to. So that's probably the biggest expense outside of her rent. But I approached a charity last year, got some money from them, a local charity. I've been lucky enough for the last 2 years to have sponsorship for her, and that obviously doesn't come easy. I've got to talk to them and explain everything and take time, and Maddison does things on socials for them, and even if it's £500, that goes a long way, especially when it's just me funding it. So I did have a second job. So the first year Maddison was up in London, I just worked at Tesco for the Christmas period, and that helped. This year I went back to Tesco. I ended up staying there 10 months because I just actually liked the people.
Yeah.
And I was at home alone. I didn't have much else to do, but I didn't realise how tired I was. After 10 months working 3 nights till midnight plus a full-time job, it was a lot.
And then travelling.
And travelling, yes. So I still went to every game. Obviously, yes, I went to every game. She obviously drives, so I didn't have to go up and pick her up and bring her back. So that helped massively. But with driving, you've got the expenses of that.
I was about to say, that's just adding another layer onto it, isn't it? A young driver, therefore high insurance, fuel for another car, maintenance for another car. Yeah. So although it's freeing up your time, there's another element of cost that's going into that.
But I'm grateful I wouldn't have not done the second job because, I was able to get the bulk of next year's rent. So I've already got that ready to go.
So this is ready to go into year 3?
Yeah, ready to go. I was able to travel to Zurich to watch her play in a competition, which was awesome. And a few other things. So, I wouldn't have been able to have done that without doing it. And I think as parents, we do go out of our way above and beyond for our children. There's a cost of living crisis going on right now. I had no option but to take on a second job to make sure that money didn't come into it. But Arsenal do help. They are, as a club, well, let's face it, the women's game is not anywhere near the men's game is. It's still a business. The revenue isn't there. Even a club like Arsenal is one of the leading female academies in Europe. They are still restricted with their finances. They can't just throw money left, right and centre. Since Maddison's been there 2 seasons ago, their setup and infrastructure has massively increased. More full-time staff, the support, the kit and equipment they get. There is a hardship fund available, which I have applied to. But it doesn't just come down to the finances. Sometimes it's Maddison having the support she needs from a personal perspective when there's situations, and they've just been fantastic with that. I'm not silly. I'm not expecting everything to be paid for. It's not. It is a business. They're a long way off the boys' set up in games. So I'm just grateful for what they can help with when we ask them.
So the setup that Maddison's in for, from a 16 to 18 or 18 to 19 now lady, is that the same for the boys, for the men, or is it different?
No, I think the boys get all their expenses paid for. They're scholars, so they get fuel every day. They get fuel. They get expenses. I think they may even probably get paid. I don't know a huge amount of the boys' side, but I do know that if you're a boy in the scholar system across the country, the parents don't need to necessarily pay anything. So there is a big difference between the two. But as I said, I think that's just where the game is. You know, 5-10 years time, massively different.
I mean, we've moved so far from the day when Maddison played at Longfleet in a boys' team to where she is now.
Yeah.
But I think it's happening very quickly, but obviously certain elements of it that just aren't happening quickly enough in terms of being completely equal.
Yeah, I think that's a long way off as well.
Even for the equality.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So do you think that more should be done to help parents financially on the female side of things?
I mean, it's an elite sport, and generally my observations over the years, even when Maddison's playing at Southampton, parents are generally doing 2 very good careers, or one's able to work at home and the other is the breadwinner, and they've got the time and the finances to be able to do it. I felt that I was one of the outsiders because I was working full-time, single mum, doing everything. And some people even today find it quite a surprise that I'm a single mum and driving up to St Albans and back in a day or an evening for Maddison to train. So there is more that could be done, but that's going to take time. You know, like I said, Arsenal listen to parents on a case-by-case basis. You know, if they don't earn the money, they're not going to allow that to stand in the way of a talent being recognised and being welcomed into the group.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do have a full-time job, so I can't expect everything to be paid for. So there's a massive, I mean, the first year there wasn't any help available, second year there was, and this year I believe there is as well. So it's happening. But I think a lot of it is you sometimes just need to ask. And I was quite proud when I asked last year, and they were so kind about it all and said, look, we're not judging, we understand the sacrifices being made, we see you're doing 2 jobs. And I just said, you know, I'm not one that asks for help, I do it myself, but if there is anything that can be done, and they were able to help me, which was a great help.
And I guess that comes with being that staunchly independent single mum, wearing the badge, I can do it all. And actually sometimes we do just need to ask for help.
Yeah, 100%.
And I guess also going out there and kind of touting Maddison for sponsorship, that must be quite difficult to do that when you've been that person that's been so independent.
Yeah, it is, but I know that sponsorship goes a long way for Maddison. Like, that's her gloves, that could be a month's rent, and it's all for her. You know, I don't benefit from it in any way, shape or form, because I need to find that money somehow. And if there's a charity out there that supports young local athletes, because they don't give money to anyone, and you know, you have to have a conversation with them, meet them face to face, have a chat, explain what Maddison's done, and you know where we think she could go, and you know all these people that have helped her throughout her journey. We don't forget that, because actually they've all played their part in some way. So I think I've realised now I'm not too proud to ask for help. And actually it is all for Maddison. So if she benefits from it long term, even better. I'm happy to go cap in hand to people now. But
I feel like for any brand or business that has supported her throughout her journey, you know, for us, Maddison was an ambassador. She was 2017, one of our very, very early ambassadors. She was a grassroots goalkeeper. And we feel kind of quite emotionally invested in her because we've just seen her just rise up, and we are constantly watching her story to see what's happening next. So I think for people to get their support behind somebody, I think it feels good.
Especially like on my socials, like I do share a lot about Maddison, especially on Facebook. I'm a sharer, but the amount of people that actually say I've really loved her journey and to see what she's done and everything, and it's nice because you think, oh, that's another football post, but people are so behind her and they just really want her to do well, and I think that goes a long way. You've got the support of the structure around football, but then you've got the support of people. And I think that the people that recognise how much she sacrificed, I've sacrificed, and how brave she is for doing what she's done, that goes a long way.
And I read something really interesting, that a post recently about Mary Earps and how her social media following was better than one of the top paid players in the NBA, and then they scaled it back to a couple that are in the Premier League, male players, and they're saying it's because these players have had to reach out to their audience. Their audience, they've had to sell themselves because they were at a disadvantage from the start, and when they post and then they comment back, it's very real. These players are there. They've got their phone. They're the ones that are controlling it, rather than a very polished, we've done very well today, 20,000 likes on a post, and the comments aren't from that person, and there's no genuine kind of feel there, which I think a player like Maddison, as she continues to rise through, she's had to work so hard on it that she'll continue. The foundations are set that she's going to appreciate her fans.
She's posted something on like Twitter, and someone comments, she's always like, "Oh, Mum, look at this," and she'll like them or she'll respond. And I think the other day she was just like, one of her posts got so many views, I don't know, 200 or 1,000 views on Twitter and stuff, and I was like, that many people have seen that. And it wasn't I've done really well today in football. It was a particular post where she got her match day shirt, had it printed with her number, and put Madge, which is what my dad calls her, printed on the back, and she gave it to him because Arsenal fan, buys himself an Arsenal shirt every year, never brought a goalkeeper's one. And it was that photo that she put of her and her granddad. That's one of the biggest ones she's ever got, because it just shows that she's authentic. It isn't just about paid partnerships, not that she's got any, but paid partnerships, advertising this. It's just real family, and that she's a human. It's personal to her.
So your family life, clearly things have changed massively because of what Maddison's been doing. How would you say your personal life, your family life has changed?
Obviously I lost Ben 5.5 years ago. He passed away suddenly, and that changed because we went from pretty much a family of 4 to a family of 2. Just Maddison and I by ourselves, and adapting to that. And then I think the biggest change was not having that support network. I then suddenly have to think about, it sounds really silly, but meal prep and planning on the go, because I didn't have Ben there potentially one night, food when we come in and all the rest of it. I've gone from having that big family to then it just being me and Maddison, to when she moved out at 16 to just me being at home. And that was quite a wake-up call, like, who am I? What do I like doing? And then I took on the second job, and then Maddison was coming home quite a lot. So then I didn't really have much of me time that year. Then this year just gone, I did the second job for 10 months. And now that I finished that, I know that when she moves back to London in September, I'm going to have so much time on my hands, because she drives her matches, because she's going to be dual signed out, will be on a Sunday, possibly Wednesdays if Arsenal pull her back. And I'm like, what do I like? I need to start getting myself out there again. Like, my friends, I probably didn't see much of them. I've got a really nice new bunch of friends from my last job, the job that I've just left, which is great. I've got a more of a social life now. But actually, I'm probably ready to get myself back out there and start dating. Start dating again. And, it's things like, what do I watch on TV? I don't know, because Maddison would always hold the remote, or I would never be home. So now that I'm home a lot more, I've got more time to reflect on myself, because I've given up pretty much every ounce of my free time for a number of years, and it is quite scary. to think come September, Monday to Saturday, it's just me and the dogs. Sunday's match day. And that's a bit scary.
Empty nest syndrome, I think it is a very real thing, isn't it? A lot of people, especially, I think if you have been so heavily involved in helping your child with their career or their education or, you know, whatever you've done with them, there's sometimes we do forget as parents who we were before parents, and obviously we're never going to be that person again, but it is, you know, I hear about it, it's like they call it a syndrome. I know we like to put titles on things, but I think there is a almost a period of sort of grieving for, obviously you still have your daughter, but the capacity in which she needs you has changed dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, she still comes home when she can, so that's going to be less because her weekends will be busy. So I've been quite fortunate. The first year she lived away, but she came home frequently. Second year she lived away, and then she came home when she wanted to. So I've kind of had that drip fed. It's not like she's suddenly gone to university and I'm not seeing her till Christmas.
Yeah.
So I've in one respect, it's been quite nice because I've eased myself into it. But then likewise, especially, I think most parents, they give themselves credit. Like, we've prepared our children to feel confident and brave enough to go and do that. I mean, at 16, I don't think I would have been ready or able to have moved the other end of like 2 motorways. And she did that earlier than most. And sometimes you just think, do you know what? She's ready because of the preparation, the conversations, the talking things through. And that's something I probably don't give myself enough credit for. She's ready because I've helped her get to that point.
Yeah, you've paved the path for her, rather than dropped her off, packed the bags and off you go.
100%.
What were I mean, you've talked about losing Ben, which must have been one of the biggest challenges for both of you, but are there any other challenges that you've had along the journey that have really stand out? So she was released from an academy.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking. So she was released from Southampton. She was just moving into the under 16, so she was 14, turning 15, and that was just at the start of COVID. And that was the first year I hadn't prepped her for, you might not get re-signed. And I just felt so confident in her ability and everything she'd done. And so it was a real shock to the system. And I actually felt like I'd failed her because she wasn't prepped that year. And that was horrid because you're seeing your child absolutely devastated. And then likewise, as a parent, I'm losing my friends because you become so... you become a family, a football family.
Your life became the parents on the sidelines.
And you know, the parents are so good. I obviously say one of my closest friends was one of the parents from Southampton. We're still friends now, and you know, you don't realise how much it engulfs your life until it's not there. So that year, the first year of COVID, Maddison ended up having surgery on her knee, which was really tough. So after that and her lengthy rehab, we're like, where does she go now? And we didn't have any direction. We didn't understand the women's game outside of an academy. You're in your bubble.
Yeah.
So when you're released, as a parent, you're like, I need to do my research. And there were some people that I could call on to say, like, what do you recommend? And we were put in touch with this guy, Ricky, from Bournemouth Sports Women. And he was interested in Maddison. She wasn't old enough to play senior football. She was only 15 at the time. And bless him, you know, I would go to him today. He took so much time to educate me on the tiering system, how it worked, what you need to be looking for at a club, at a senior level for grassroots. And he didn't benefit from it. He's like, I'd love to have it, but actually we're probably not the best club setup-wise at this point in time to do that. So we went on our way. I just put a tweet out, Maddison's looking for an opportunity between the sticks. And I had a lot of interest. A phone call from a lady called Y that was linked at Southampton Women, who are the National League side. So Maddison went there, met the coaches. Goalkeeper coach Craig was brilliant. And so Maddison decided to sign with them at their under-18s. She was 15, so he went for their under-18s with a view when she was 16 to try and break into the first team. So that's where she went, and alongside that she went to county level with Dorset, and she trained there once a week and did games in like the school holidays and stuff. So combined, she had quite a good structure around her, and the people took time to understand her journey, her return to football after being out for a year, being released, her personal journey with losing Ben, and the people that took time to understand that brought the best out in her. And when she was 16, she made her National League debut in Tier 4 for the club. And even though that was one of the hardest moments, Maddison wouldn't be with Arsenal now if Southampton had kept her.
Yeah.
I think you just need to see that one door closes, others open, but the amount of resilience Maddison has built up over the years is ridiculous. Like, I have no qualms to think that if anything were to happen to her again, and touch wood it doesn't, she would have the skill set to deal with that.
She has the ability to pick herself up and know that there's another pathway somewhere for her.
Yeah.
But I think it does also show how much input that you've had, because there's going to be some parents where their children have been released from an academy and they're kind of like, what now? And they don't know. And actually you took the initiative to go and talk to people, go and understand, you know, I don't understand the women's league. I've got 2 boys that play football. It's actually educating yourself so that you've kind of armed with all the tools that you need to then go, okay, right, here are the next lot of options.
It's research, because if you don't know what you don't know. And I spent so long looking at clubs, the tiering system, the goalkeeper coaches, you know, things like that, and how things are working. And I would like to say now that I'm quite educated in particularly in the National League, because I've had to take time to do that, because you don't get a pen and a piece of paper to say these clubs are interested. You have to do your homework, and I think that's really important, is to do your homework and work out the point of people you can trust in the football environment, because not everybody has your best interests at heart.
And at the point of being released, there's nothing, there's no we're releasing you but there's an option to go here or here. Is it very much?
At the time, Maddison, when she was released, the guidance was we would recommend Maddison to play at the highest level that she can, potentially a mix between youth and senior football, and that was it. And I was just like, that doesn't help me whatsoever.
Especially when you weren't prepared for it to come, that they hadn't put any kind of feelers out that this might potentially be.
Yeah, but with all the homework I've done, like even recently, a few months ago, a mum that had a daughter at Southampton a few years younger than Maddison, she reached out and asked if we can have a coffee, because she's like, you've done all of this. You've done the homework, you've done the research. Can you help me? And I think there is a gap. I mean, Arsenal are very good, like exit routes and all the rest of it, but I don't think that is necessarily, I mean, it could be now because Maddison was released a number of years ago, but back then it was quite ruthless in an environment that I don't think could have afforded to have been ruthless at that time. I don't think it was quite there then. Now, yes, of course, you know, players expected to be dropped, or you're not performing, someone else gets selected. Mm-hmm. But back then, for a 14-year-old, it was really, really difficult.
Yeah, and they've given so much as well, haven't they, to the club? They make the sacrifices, they miss parties and, you know, events on weekends and things, because they're so dedicated to the club, which always, it does come across as so incredibly harsh that
but
they give so much and then they're
just
cast out.
I mean, but that isn't the same in the boys thing. In actual fact, it's probably worse in the boys game.
Yeah, we hear some horror stories. Really. So what advice would you give to parents who are kind of a bit earlier on in their journey, but they're supporting their children? They think there is the potential of pursuing a professional career in football.
So do your homework. You know, just because somebody comes and says, oh, you know, you think your child's got talent, doesn't necessarily mean that they have their best interests at heart.
Okay.
So, and you know, it's the research part. So I spent a long time looking on websites, looking at people that are the FA recommended, clubs. You know, the only time Maddison ever paid to play football was her specific goalkeeper training and then a sign-on fee to a club. Outside of that, she's never played. I know there's a lot of academies out there right now, but sometimes that's not necessarily the right route to go down, as in like independent academies.
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of people use the term academy, whereas sort of 10 years ago an academy strictly was linked to professional club.
Agreed,
but it's a very loose term used now.
So I think, and it's also working out who you can trust. Maddison and I had a conversation recently where I was like, if you make it one day, who are you going to thank? You know, who would you say, oh, this person inspired me and supported me? And I think there were probably 3 people. One, Robbie Yates, who I mentioned, you know, he came to Craven Cottage to watch Maddison play.
Oh, that's amazing.
He'd never seen her play before. He just coached her. He was really supportive through lockdown, giving her exercises and fitness and things like that. Then you've got Craig Burns he was at Southampton Women, her goalkeeper coach. He had 1 season with her, and in that season she got signed to Arsenal and she played for England.
Yeah.
And he took time to get to know her as an individual. And then the third one is a PE teacher, Sarah Bowen. She believes in her so much. She drove with me all the way up to St George's Park and came up. She didn't actually play that day for England, but she went all that way with her son just to be there and support her. And I think that's what you need. I know that at any point, Maddison and I can reach out to any 3 of those and ask for help, or they'd come and watch her play. And I think it's just surrounding you with good people that have your child's best interests at heart, not about money making, not being associated with somebody just in case they make it. It's people that go out of their way and give up their time. And it's time is the key thing here. It's not money. It's not buying them something. It is their time to dedicate to your child because they actually believe in them as a person, but also as a talent.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. I think obviously mum has to be number 1 at the top of that thank you list.
Of course, it goes without saying.
1 and then 2, 3 and 4. So is there anything that, with the benefit of hindsight, anything you would have done differently to support Maddison?
No, because I think every challenge, setback, argument, tears that have come our way have just set us both in a good position for the next one. And things happen for a reason. You know, losing Ben, Maddison becoming a goalkeeper because of Ben, the being released from Southampton, having surgery. You know, there's players out there now that are having their very first injury at 16, 17, 18. And you can see that mentally, then they're struggling. But because Maddison's been through that before, she's got that mental strength and she actually helps the other guys. She checks in on them. So I think where she went through so much at a younger age in her career, hopefully that is set up in good stead. And one of her coaches, Robbie, he said the first thing he looks for when he recruits a goalkeeper is their mental strength, their resilience and their attitude. He goes, he would pick that above talent because talent can be built upon.
Yeah.
He goes, it's the person that is most important. And, you know, I'm very proud of Maddison, the young lady she is. She's a kind girl. And I think that everything else that's come her way, she's dealt with it and she's stronger for it. So I would have chosen to not have some of the challenges.
Of course.
But, you know, upon reflection, they have developed her and strengthened her in other areas.
They've shaped who she is today.
Yeah.
So one final thing, really, I suppose she started at grassroots. Most people that are watching this are grassroots parents. What's your perspective on grassroots and how it's shaped her and shaping the sort of players of the future?
Well, from shaping Maddison, obviously she was only there for a couple of years. It went from I'm really enjoying playing with my friends and, you know, the early calls, the early get-ups on a Saturday or a Sunday. I certainly don't miss those so much. But it's that family environment. You know, the tournaments, you can't beat a tournament with a
they
picnic.
Are the best moments.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get those now. Maddison's just flown to Zurich, so I guess that was like my tournament with parents on the sidelines. But I think from where Maddison was to now, the women's game and the girls' game is just so vastly different. You've got ETCs popping up all over the place, and that just makes it more accessible for girls to play. there are girls' leagues, so you have multiple girls' football teams. Girls can still play with boys. You know, one of my friend's daughters was part of the Invincibles team that went unbeaten in the boys' league, and they won it.
Yeah.
And you just think that is great that you're getting the coverage of that. But girls, the ability of these young players is starting to stand out and show actually girls are as good as boys. Yes, you've got the physical factor as they get older, granted, but there is so much more going on out there now, which means more girls can play, and it's the whole we can play, I can play, and I think that's really important. Maddison does her bit. When she comes home, she goes and meets young players. She'll send voice notes. She did a presentation evening recently for a local club, and you know, them to actually see in person somebody that was their age in an Arsenal kit giving them a trophy, they're just like, wow.
Yeah.
And that actually goes a long way, because she is real, she's here, she lives in the area, and I think that actually really does help promote the game and what they could do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I guess, do you know Maddison's social handles now? We can always put it in the show notes.
I know on Twitter she's MadsGK13, and on Insta Mads_1_. So we'll confirm that after.
Yeah, so if you are watching, we'll pop those up on the screen as well. But give her a follow, because her journey, well, I mean, she's gone a long way, and it looks like she's got a long way to go as well. So give her a follow, and you never know, she might comment back to you. So thanks, Faye.
No worries, thank you.